Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo Malloy. So today I have a special guest. So this guest, I would say, wears many hats, which includes he is a author, he is a researcher, he is a professor, an engineer, and an inventor. And he's also my father. So please welcome Zulumathabo Zulu.
Hello, greetings. Thank you, young lady, for hosting me on your very important show, and also greetings to your audience.
All right, yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, for having. And I feel like with the film that we'll be discussing today, I would say it's is best suitable in it, and I'm sure it'll bring some interesting conversations.
Yes, hope so.
All right,
That is
so
the plan.
absolutely. So the film that we'll be discussing today is Hollywood Shuffle. So Hollywood Shuffle is a 1987 satirical comedy that's directed by Robert Townsend, who also produced and co-written the film. So he has directed works such as Eddie Murphy Raw and The Meteor Man. So the film also co-stars Anne Marie Johnson and Helen Martin. So essentially, the film, it focuses on an actor played by Robert Townsend. He's essentially limited to stereotypical roles because of his ethnicity, and he dreams of making it big as a highly respected performer. And as he makes his rounds, the film takes a satirical look at the African American actors in Hollywood. The film was released in theaters on March 20th, 1987. It opened at number 18 with over 95,000. So, films that beat this at the box office include Lethal Weapon, Burglar, and Platoon. So, it made apparently over 5.2 million during its theatrical release. In terms of reception on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 85% critic score. So with the consensus, here's what they have to say. Hollywood Shuffle overcomes budgetary constraints with sharp humor and infectious energy, heralding the arrival of an exciting new filmmaking talent in the bargain. The audience, however, gave it 80%. So the film is available on demand, so check your local provider. All right, so we could dive into first category, which is first discoveries, essentially how you first learned about the movie, your initial thoughts, and has it changed since then. So do you want to start?
Absolutely. So first of all, I had completely forgotten about the movie. But I remember I did watch it in Canada a few years after my arrival there. I think we arrived in Canada, Ottawa, in 1989. So, and probably, I don't know, I may have watched it maybe around 1991, something like that. I don't quite remember. But the movie, and then of course, since you brought this to my attention, so I had to go and watch it again, of course, with your assistance, of course. And yeah, but I found my reaction was a bit different. But I should say, the first time I watched it, it was very, very funny, I must say. Yeah, it was the most hilarious movie that one could ever watch. And I've always been very big about things that are done by our own people. So that is really was very great. So whether my feeling has changed, yeah, maybe there has been a bit of change in the sense that you see, if you, the first time I watched it was more along the humorous aspect, the comedy aspect. And I must say, humor is a bit of how shall I say? It's a bit of a peculiar genre in the sense that you are not supposed to be explicit in telling your story in humor. You're supposed to provide more laughter, and then which opens the minds of people, and then people will eventually begin to sympathize with you and maybe get your story. But humor is a bit more subtle in storytelling. And I must say, Robert Townsend is extremely talented, because a lot of people really gave this movie rave reviews. I mean, I was watching him being interviewed by Alex Haley, for example, and Alex Haley was also raving about this movie. So he really did an extremely good job in that sense. What probably has a bit changed on my side is that I kind of feel that, to tell your story about your predicament is one thing, but we should also inject the aspect of how do we change things, like kind of encourage people in that direction. But we'll talk more about that as we proceed.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of like right there with you, because for me, like when I was younger, I think I had the VHS like growing. I don't remember if you bought it or if mom bought
I
it, but
did. That's your father. Your
yeah.
father is the one who buys the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like for
Yeah.
me, like when I was younger, I didn't like fully like understand like the subject matter, but for me, what resonated at the time was the parodies, because for me, like I enjoyed like when they parodied like Siskel and Ebert with the sneaking at the movies segment, or like with the black acting school. So I thought like with those aspects for me, like I thought like they were funny at the time, but as like I got older, like in rewatching it now, like I understood like what he was trying to come across in terms of bringing awareness like to the subject matter on how like black actors are treated in Hollywood, not just like at the time, but I would also argue today as well too. Like don't get me wrong, like there has been some like progress that happened throughout the years, but I still feel like there's a long way to go in order to get the respect that black actors need.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It has really come a long way, and progress has been made, the truth be told.
Mm-hmm.
And we must appreciate the progress that has been made, but there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially on this aspect of the genre of comedy as a tool of, shall I say, emancipation. The tool that's supposed to reverse the systems that are disadvantageous to black actors. And as I said, it's not a very easy thing, because this humor is almost like poetry. Poetry you've got a very small window to tell your story. And poetry also, a good poetry is not explicit. It's very subtle. Uses metaphors and stuff like that. It uses indirect language to tell the story. So I find the comedy is also a bit poetic in that way, and Robert Townsend has done an extremely good job in that regard. And but now in terms of the vignettes, so I think the strategy of the vignettes is quite powerful, because vignettes are almost like a different, like mini genres, if I may put it that way. Like that vignette you just mentioned of sneak movie, movie reviews, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They sneak their way into the theater to review the movie. They stole the ticket, stuff like that. And I mean that's quite impressive. And I think what I find impressive is that you are oppressed as a black people, but you're still able to love, and you're still able to actually think technically about a movie, like, look at it
Mm-hmm.
in a more technical way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite impressive. And I think we have to give it to them. There's another vignette that I like a lot in that movie, really, I must say. I just
Mm-hmm.
forgot the name of the character, but that's the part where Bobby Taylor, that's his name, right? Bobby Taylor. So Bobby Taylor's kind of sitting on a chair. He's in this particular place, and he's asking himself if he will ever make it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this guy who says to him, what if you make it? What if you do really make it? And I think that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Mm-hmm.
says to him that, he used to be a very impressive, actor, performer on stage, and he used to sing beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
But then there were people who used to tell him that, he won't make it. And they kept on saying it, and he started believing it, you see. And I think, and he says that, to Bobby Taylor, don't let anyone, steal your dreams or destroy your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was definitely a vignette that stands out for me.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, like, we could segue into the highlights portion. So, essentially, what we liked about the movie. So, yeah,
Okay.
to go off, like your point, yeah, like obviously, like that's something that like creatives like really have to go through because I would say like the majority of the time you hear like a lot of no's, like saying like, oh, you'll never make it, like you can't do this, like that sort of deal, which clearly like got into Uncle Ray's like mindset. But like with Bobby Taylor, like now wanting to get into the business and like with what he's going through with the movie, like the uncle is assuring him, like you know what, just go for it, like just forget about what the people like have to say, just go for your dreams, like don't let anyone stop you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, very powerful. And there's a lot, I must say, going against Bobby Taylor. I mean, his grandmother doesn't like this idea of acting in movies that are gonna give a negative image to the black people, right? And she's justified in feeling this way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a bit hard for him, even when he wants to be a role model to his younger brother. And
Mm-hmm.
the only positive feedback he gets is from his mother, but but not from the grandmother. You know what I mean? That sort of situation is a bit tough, and you can't blame the
Mm-hmm.
grandmother for that. She's encumbered by the historical baggage. I must put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And but I like the fact that Bobby Taylor perseveres. He's got
Mm-hmm.
this tenacity,
Mm-hmm.
right? With this tenacity to go on. But being a black actor is tough. I mean, that movie that he made is what? Is the first movie really of it's the first movie he made, isn't it?
Yeah.
In 1997.
Mm-hmm.
And he, of course, has been acting since young age. I think started acting around what, 1974. That he was probably what, 17, give and take, something like that. So really he started very young. So you can see this is his calling, really. It's not just something he chose to do. It's within his blood, his chromosomes, his DNA,
Mm-hmm.
that's him. He needs to do it. And then of course the job that he does kind of sucks.
Yeah.
That job of selling hot dogs and stuff like that. And I must say I detest the hat that they have.
Yeah, it's hilarious that the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And remember that a black man always there are these images that they have about the black man. I mean, for me, those hot dogs sticking out from the head, they're almost like genitalia, actually. And and the black man is always associated with that sort of stuff. You know what I'm
Mm.
trying. But at any rate, I suppose the movie also shows that when you are encountering challenges and adversity of any kind, limitations of any kind,
Mm-hmm.
very important that you must not be defined by the adverse conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he keeps on imagining, dreaming about this being an actor, being a successful actor, and is concerned about being an inspiration to his younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
So he does exhibit some kind of transcendence over his
Mm-hmm.
obstacles, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is quite beautiful indeed.
Absolutely, because I felt, yeah, like the film did a good job like of showing like the actor's life, like more like the behind the scenes, that sort of deal. Because like you say, like he pretty much like hates his job, and he always comes up with excuses every time when he has auditions. Like I think in the opening sequence, he said, "Oh, I have like a dentist appointment," but really he doesn't have it. So, yeah. But yeah, like because I imagine like with auditions, like there's probably so few that comes, especially like for a black actor. So it kind of shows that like it's essentially every black actor competes like for the same roles because there was like so few, I imagine, like at the time. So
Yeah.
and like I would say like also to another point I liked is that when the baddie actor visits him at the Winky Dinky Dog place, like he
Mm.
mentions that, oh, it's all about making money, it's all about sequels as opposed to making art, which is what Bobby like wants to
Yeah.
do as an actor. So it's kind of nice that the film kind of brings up that debate, which is honestly still happening today with the sorts of movies that's being shown on mainstream as opposed to more like streaming or like independent platforms.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very great. Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that shows also his sense of the moral code.
Mm-hmm.
That, which kind of links with the other vignette where he gets what he gets, I think, a callback,
Yeah.
and then this and then of course, obviously the caller was beating about the bush, and then eventually he says, "No, you've got a call back." I got a call back. Yes. Why
Mm-hmm.
didn't you see that in the first place? You know
Mm-hmm.
that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then he says they're looking for what, Eddie Murphy time, something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And then he says, "Wanda, why can't I just act? Why can't I be me?" You
Yeah.
see, and that's quite brilliant because this is a comedy, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't you're not too explicit about your problems, but you give hints, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and and
Mm-hmm.
and and people kind of, how shall I say, sympathize with it. And actually, this movie, I've noticed, is loved by both white and black.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You see, it's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So very successful in that way in kind of bridging the racial divide. And I think also that the aspect you are mentioning of the stereotypical roles, the pimp, the slave, the epic slave, the junkie and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it must be very hard for an actor because you went to school, you spent money to acquire this education, and then you deserve a fair opportunity, an equal opportunity like anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
and you should not have limitations in
Right.
roles. I'm just reminded. I wrote an article recently called "The Perversity of 1994 Freedom," which is a reflection on the South African freedom that came about in 1994 with President Mandela becoming the president, of course. And in that article, I define the concept, the word freedom. So if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the word freedom, it has got two parts. There's free, and then there is dom.
Mm-hmm.
So free is about being exempt from arbitrary controls, arbitrary limitations, random controls, random limitations, vestigial limitations, that sort of stuff is about really being free. That's the free part. And then the dom refers to an official decree that guarantees your freedom. Like, for example, some kind of a system of governance, like the court of law, the government, the parliament, declaring that you are free and your freedom is guaranteed. So freedom is so important that it has to be guaranteed officially, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we see now the black actor who has studied or made efforts to learn the craft, and they want to practice the craft, but you find that they don't enjoy that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So and you find that there is not even a system of governance, some institution like a government, parliament, House of Congress that says we guarantee that this black actor has got equal access to the opportunity like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And their roles should not be limited to these negative roles.
Mm-hmm.
But you have nothing like that.
Yeah.
You see, nothing
Mm-hmm.
like that. And now you remember there's another vignette of NAACP there where they
Yes.
kind of picket him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was sad because the NAACP, they've got lawyers, they understand the principles of freedom. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of them going to the government to make a point that our black actors are not afforded equal opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are only limited to these stereotypical roles that perpetuate their sense of inferiority, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and they are economically disenfranchised, you see,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But they actually picket the actor, Bobby Taylor. So actually they are blaming the victim.
Yeah.
Because Bobby Taylor has no choice in terms of the roles that are presented to him. He has to, he has to make the best of that. What do they say? They say, you got to work with the cards that you're dealt until such time that you can deal the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to work with those cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking myself, how would I act if I was in that position? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, I don't think I would do anything different. And I think Bobby Taylor is even better than me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I don't think I would do anything different because, you are, you have those, you are dealt a bad hand.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to move forward and make it, you got to set your teeth into this career.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully things work out. And it worked out for Townsend, of course, because he managed to make a movie. A lot of black actors who experienced the same experience were not able to transmute that experience into a film.
Yeah.
And so I have the greatest respect to Robert Townsend.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So, because yeah, like you brought up interesting points. Because with the NAACP scene, like I thought it was interesting because they target more like on him as opposed like to like the Hollywood system. Because I do believe if that were to happen in real life, I think they would oppose more the system than the actor because like he's not the only actor that does those roles per se. So.
Absolutely. And an NAACP has got the ability to go to Congress.
Yeah.
If you remember the movie Black Panther,
Mm-hmm.
they did exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
They went into Congress with guns. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That exactly, to make the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though they paid a high price for that,
Mm-hmm.
but the freedoms that people enjoy today is because of those kind of actions.
Mm-hmm.
To say we are also human beings, we deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and we need to get the same opportunity. We all pay tax.
Yeah.
That sort of situation. So NAACP really, at least in that vignette, they lost the plot.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, I don't know what you think about his girlfriend turning on him in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I have more thoughts on the girlfriend, like in the Lowlights section, but I mean, I guess it's not really surprised that everyone like turns on him in that point. But again, like it's like fantasy because he's the one that's like thinking about those stuff. So
Sure, absolutely, that is fantasy. Yeah, absolutely,
absolutely. So another point I want to bring up is that like during like the audition scene, so one of the actors is named Jesse Wilson. So it seems like he manipulates Bobby, like when they're waiting, because he pretty much said, oh, like with the material, like is bullshit because it's, you know, it has like the stereotypical roles. But then like on the flip side, like he like is so willing to like take the role when Bobby like quits the film. So it kind of made me think that like had he not said those stuff to Bobby, like I think Bobby like would have took the role regardless of what the grandma or like anyone says about it.
Yes. Now, young lady, gotta watch out for vulgarity here.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways, yes. Yeah, definitely. You're making a good point there. And what can I say? So sorry, I just lost the train of my thoughts here. Maybe you can continue to comment, and then I'll gather my thoughts.
Yeah, because essentially, like after when the actor like tells like Bobby that you know the script is nonsense because of the
Right.
stereotypes of black people, like because we
Exactly.
see like Bobby like he's kind of like thinking of those stuff like through like the vignettes, like through the parodies, but yet
Exactly.
he still like auditions like for the role, like he takes a role, and it seems like
Yeah.
he's willing to like go for it. But it's not until
Yeah.
like when the grandma like you know pretty much objects to it, that's when like Bobby like pretty much says he has enough about it
That's right.
and quits.
Yeah, because he had reached a point of saturation at that point. Now, you see, on that aspect of the vignette where audition,
Mm-hmm.
where the guy says to him, taking this role is a sellout,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that kind of stuff. Those are pretty tough words, right? Because
Yeah.
no black man wants to sell out his race, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so that puts him in a corner right there. And he
Mm-hmm.
even shocked. I said, what?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also, I think it's important that the point needs to be made that
Mm-hmm.
as people who are oppressed, regardless of our oppressive condition, it is important to be loyal to the
Mm-hmm.
cause,
Mm-hmm.
and you need those around you to remind you of that, which is what
Mm-hmm.
that person is reminding him, that you remember there's the aspect of loyalty here that we have to. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing is that that reminder is kind of parochial, it's kind of one-sided because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't consider the economic necessities of the actor. This is a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's been working on this craft. He needs to practice this craft in order to live, you see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think Bobby Taylor kind of experiences some kind of schizophrenia, identity crisis.
Yeah.
You want to do good this side, but then in order to do good, you have to do bad. You have to take these bad role models. And what choice does he have, really? No, I don't see him
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of choices there,
Mm-hmm.
especially in those days, you see.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that, he gives it his best. He gives
Yeah.
it his best shot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Even by the time he says, I've had enough of this, but that's only because he had reached the point of saturation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. But like I do want to bring out though, like it's kind of hypocritical, like I said, like for that other actor to tell him that, like when he is willingly to like accept the role like himself, because it
Yeah.
kind of shows that like I said, because like with actors, in this point, black actors are competing for the same roles, like I guess people will do like whatever it takes so that they can secure the role like for
Yeah, yeah.
themselves. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yes. You're right. It is definitely hypocritical that way. It's some kind of a duplicity,
Mm-hmm.
double standard. But at the same time, the point being made that, hey, we have to remember not to sell out. But you see, it's all in the context of schizophrenia, because even that
Mm-hmm.
actor who's discouraging him, but he's accepting the role, that shows the state of schizophrenia, the
Mm-hmm.
identity crisis. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, mm,
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say too, like, also what I liked about the film is the parodies, like we've mentioned earlier. So essentially, with the black acting school, that's about like showing like the stereotypes that black people essentially like have to face, like in terms of the slavery, like the
Yeah.
gangsters, that sort of stuff. And then with sneaking in the movies, that essentially parodies the Siskel and Ebert. For those of you who don't know, Siskel and Ebert, they were essentially like the top like movie reviewers like at the time. This was way before like the internet. So with like the movies that they show in that one, so the first one is Amadeus, which I would say like is kind of like a boring period piece. You have Chicago Jones, which essentially parodies the Indiana Jones movies, which kind of like has them like with split reactions. And then you have Dirty Larry, which essentially parodies the Dirty Harry films of Clint Eastwood, which they both say like it's unrealistic with the situation. And then it ends with Attack of the Street Pimps, which is pretty much like the more original film out of the bunch, which essentially parodies Night of the Living Dead. And I kind of felt like it's more like, and with today, The Walking Dead meets Dolomites. So I would say like if I were to watch one of those four movies, I'd probably choose The Attack of the Street Pimps because I'm kind of more curious to see how that one go if that were made to be a movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, absolutely. And we grew up under those people, Clint Eastwood, and a black person in those movies is nothing. It's like a servant or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was quite excited by Hollywood Shuffle, because
Mm-hmm.
in Hollywood Shuffle, you've got an actor who's trying to make it and is not allowing the adversity to stop them. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I think this Hollywood Shuffle is to some extent autobiographical
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the life of Robert Townsend, because he actually auditioned for the position of Saturday Live, which was of course won by Eddie
Mm-hmm.
Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how he brings up this Eddie Murphy aspect in the vignette of the auditions, where he says that, why can't just act? Why should I be like Eddie Murphy? Now you see the film companies have this idea of trying to piggy bank on the popularity of on the high value actor, for example. They like to do that, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that Bobby Taylor says, I want to be me. I want to do what I want to do. Because he
Absolutely.
understands that
Mm-hmm.
if you do what you love to do, you will do it better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a key factor, not only in terms of acting, but also in terms of just a career, a profession. It's very important to do something you like to do. That's why I always advise people to look back at their lives, like when they were kids, to see what this is that they like to do and try to find a transferable skill from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what we used to like to do as kids is a metaphor, is a figure of speech
Mm-hmm.
to figure out things that are of interest to us and where we can actually, excel. But I like the fact that he's really an architect of destiny. You gotta give it to him for that. He's an architect of destiny, and he's the unbought and unsold architect of destiny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, even in real life. I mean, Robert Townsend decides to make a movie about this experience. He doesn't have enough money. He says when he was being interviewed by Alex Haley, he says, he did a calculation and it would cost around, give and take, $40,000. And
Mm-hmm.
he did money, he had the credit cards, and I think he
Mm-hmm.
even applied for more credit cards. So I don't know exactly how much they spent on the movie, but some people say $100,000. Some people say $1 million. But
Yeah,
whatever
the budget is a 100,000.
100,000. Okay, so that
Yeah.
is right. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So he spent $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting that he says that a lot of the things were not paid in cash. was the swiping of the credit card. That is a big risk.
Yeah.
That is a big risk. What if the movie does not fly? Huh?
Yeah. But
But you
clearly
see,
it did. It did though
it
at the end.
did.
Yeah.
It flew, you know. Yeah, the movie went on to climb to greater heights. And apparently it inspired other movies as well. There is a movie, what's it called? In the Hill? In the Hill?
I don't know
I don't know whether it's a show. I don't know if it's a show or something like that, but there's something about that. Apparently that was inspired by Hollywood Shuffle, for example.
Okay.
Yes, so I thought that was interesting. But it's interesting that when he shows this gutsy spirit.
Yes.
Of getting yourself into credit card debts. Something that you're not sure it will fly. Not only that, apparently when he was filming, I understand that he didn't even have a filming permit. How about that? Yeah, he just put on T-shirts and they went about filming. And he was lucky. Not even one person came to say, hey, do you have a permit for filming? Today you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't film today like that. No. The cops would come.
Yeah. That truly is indie filmmaking.
Yeah, that's indie filmmaking. Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. You know how I encourage you on these things. You know?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Because, yeah, like to go on what you were saying, like, because essentially Bobby, like, he doesn't want to be limited, like, with the roles he gets because of his race, because we see that he dreams about him being Rambo, like, or like him being a superhero, which I think kind of leads to him doing a Meteor Man, which we'll get into the trivia section later, and also to him doing Shakespeare, and then eventually like winning the Oscars. So yeah, like it's great that he still has those ambitions despite, you know, all the negativity he has to deal with.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
He eventually gets the commercial at the end.
Yeah.
At the post office.
Beautiful. At the post office. Now the grandmother's here.
Yeah. Because, you know, like all it takes is that one commercial to, you know, lift off your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that one of the commercial, the post office, that's powerful because now in his success, he also brings along the grandmama too. You see that? Yeah, because she was always saying that there's a job at the post office. And only to find out that was a blessing in disguise. Actually, there was going to be a commercial on that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I would say also too, like the parody, I forgot to mention, he with the Sam Ace parody. So essentially, that parodies, I guess like the film noir, like detective movies, like back in the day, like the black and white film, if you remember. And I thought like with, I guess the villain Jerry Curl, like, cause it's so hilarious that he has that huge, like Jericho, clearly it's a wig. And like, I felt like, like he would be a great spokesperson if you remember like the Soul Glow, like commercials with that product placement in Coming to America. If you remember, like with the guys, like with that big, like the big hair,
big curls, and actually the oil rubs off the sofas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was one of the first movies I bought when I landed in Canada, coming to America.
Oh.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, and it's quite interesting. You know, I must say, you know, that movie helped me to kind of overcome some of my own, you know, how shall I say, narrow look at life. You know, because I always freak out when Black people talk about problems. You know, we Black people have a tendency of foregrounding our bad experiences to a fault, you know, where the conversation now only revolves around it. You see, but somebody like Bobby Taylor, he doesn't want to be limited by that. He wants to go out there and explore the world and and actually make it a success. And he does make it a success. And that means that if you really are determined to succeed in doing something, you will really succeed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can actually stop you. Just like, you know, your dad, you know, I wanted to be a software engineer. So, and then my math kind of was kind of sucked, you know. I was a great mathematician when I was growing up, but I just stayed for a long time not practicing mathematics. But I remember just before I came to Canada, I used to practice mathematics in the jungle. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
In the jungle, practicing mathematics.
Yeah.
And then by the time I came to Canada, I had honed my mathematics. And
Yeah.
so, and you know, Algonquin College, there used to be what they call Lee's campus. I don't think it's there anymore now.
I think they still have it.
Yeah, is Algonquin still running there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Lee's campus is where it used to be the science campus of Algonquin College. All the
Yeah.
mathematics, physics, chemistry, they were done in that campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all the math there. How about that? And I used to be the best mathematics student, you know, doing calculus, differential equations, Fourier theory, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And until, of course, I worked as a software engineer. And yeah, and I never allowed myself to be stopped, you know, for something that I love to do, because I've always loved solving problems, and computer software engineering gave me that challenge that I needed, that intellectual challenge. So even in the terms of acting, you know, those challenges that he experiences for him were intellectual. They stimulated his brain to become even more inventive in overcoming the challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I guess like a final note that I'll say for highlights is that I enjoyed the performances like from the cast. Like they did a good job like playing like the multiple roles, and I would say yeah, like with Robert Townsend, he did a good job with the production, like the directing, the writing of the film.
Absolutely, and I think we should underscore that it's not easy to be a director, to be
Absolutely.
a producer, to be a writer. I mean, it's quite. This is quite too much, really.
Yeah.
But he did very well. He did it very well, and maybe only a black man can do that, or a black woman can do that. You know, because given our historical situation of enslavement and colonialism, so we have learned to multitask in order to overcome our condition, you know, and we see him doing it very well there. And not only that, I mean, a director is responsible for the story of the movie, and right, and he is the one who's directing the story.
Absolutely.
The producer is responsible for the business side of the movie. We see flying with the credit cards.
Yeah. And just to make a note on that, like he did mention that in the theatrical trailer, like of the movie, which you could find on YouTube. But
okay, oh, he did say that. That's
yeah.
Okay.
But like
Yeah,
also to say like yeah, that's the beauty of like indie filmmaking, because you essentially have to wear like many hats, but the beneficial side is that you get to learn all like aspects like of the filmmaking, not just like one particular, you know, point of view.
Right. No, absolute. Yeah, I would give it to him,
Absolutely. So, was there anything else you want to mention in the highlights section that we didn't cover before we move on to the next category, or do you pretty
Well,
much?
I think we've pretty much covered it. Maybe I can just add that the review aspect, which I thought was quite creative, very ingenious. The part that you know, that vignette where you've got those weird guys chasing those girls, and then those girls are running away. They come down the
with
stairs.
the street pimps, yeah.
The street pimps. And then it's quite interesting that when they come running, the first one, the girls asked, what's happening? He said, no, it is them. Who is them? I don't see anybody there. And then she kept on, yeah, you must run. But she runs. And then the second one also just tried to tell them they don't understand. But it's interesting that when the street films eventually appeared, it is the girl who refused. That's Anne-Marie, right? That's Anne-Marie, right?
Yes, yes.
She's the one who actually gets stuck with the films, and everybody's you know. I suppose that simply means that, you should never brush off something you don't fully understand. And I think it's a good thing always to, when somebody says they are afraid of something, you should take that seriously, Yeah, I'm always reminded, I like animals and the jungle and stuff like that. So in the jungle, when somebody that is, I don't know, maybe is half crazy or something says to you, that particular tree, there's a lion that likes to go there. You'll have to take that seriously, right?
Yeah.
Because it affects your survivability, you see?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So we could go on to the lowlights section. So essentially what we didn't like about the movie. So I would say, like, I didn't get, like, the whole deal, like, with the post office. Like why does the grandma, like, want him to work at the post office? Like, why not just say, I don't know, like, be a doctor or a lawyer, like, or something? Because that part, like, I didn't really understand.
I think because, you see, grandmother has been, encumbered by, a lot of baggage of life. And so she is really, I think, highlighting the aspect of job security, because the job at the post office is quite secure. So she was really looking for security for him, and she didn't want to see the grandson really having an insecure job situation.
Yeah.
So for her, security was very, very important. And I think that's why she was kind of making the point there. But you see, Bob Taylor is a new kid on the block, meaning he's not encumbered by past experiences. He wants to do this thing. You see that? Yeah, and I suppose that's a generational gap also there.
Yeah.
But interesting that when the opportunity arises for Bobby Taylor to do the commercial with the post office, that was the most exciting thing, because it gets to make amends with the grandmother. I told you I would do this thing. And then the grandmother sees the post office sign, the logo. She's happy.
Yeah, for sure. But I've heard though, like, with working at the post office, it's not, like, I hear it's not really the best, because I see all the time, like, they often, like, go to strikes and all that stuff because of pay. But hey, I guess, like, it does provide job security in some way.
Yeah, but it provides job security in a sandbox. See? So I see a post office as a sandbox.
Yeah.
And when I came to Canada, I was quite surprised to see that every white kid grows up in a sandbox. I think you're the only ones who didn't grow up in a sandbox, because we didn't provide a sandbox.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sandbox means that you're confined, right? Confined into a sandbox. So a post office job is a sandbox job. And that's why Bobby did not want to be confined, to be sandboxed, if I put it that way.
Yeah.
He was looking outside to the sandbox. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And another point that I didn't like about the movie, I thought, like, with Bobby's girlfriend, I felt like there could have been more for her to do than just being there, like, for support.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yes. I mean, I see that particularly. Remember when he comes in that vignette where she is working in the salon, and then he he comes in and he tells her that, he's going for an audition, and she gets excited, and I hope you get it. And then she says, I'm happy for you. Something, but she was something about celebration. That no, we'll say. She said, when you get it, we'll celebrate. So see, that comment, underscores your comment that she could have done more than just be there. You see, but I don't think she was about to do more than that. And we see it when during the NAACP, when she turns against him, she says he must be killed. You remember that? So she's not the type of woman that would stand by her man through thick and thin. You see? And obviously, she's an extremely beautiful woman, very attractive. And so Bobby Taylor also, he's enamored by her, and that's why I'm writing a book called How to Know If He or She is the Right One. You see, it's a checklist that you have to go through, and then, even if you like the person, but if they don't resonate, then they don't resonate. You see, you must move on. Stuff like that. Exactly.
Yeah. But I just felt, I don't know, like maybe there could have been like a scene or two, maybe like if she didn't want him to take a role, like she could have like mentioned that. But I just felt like, there could have been more with her character. But
no, absolutely, especially that aspect where she's turning on him at the NAACP. I mean, that is the worst form of betrayal.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, the Bobby Taylor imagining these things, so he has that sense also. He has got that. He's got the instinctive grasp of that reality with respect to the girlfriend. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like, I guess like a final note I'll say is that when they were filming like the movie towards the end, I thought it was like hilarious that like when, I think that's the character Tommy, like when he gets shot, we don't see any bullets, we don't see any blood, we just see him lie on the floor. I don't know if it's because he didn't had enough money to get all that stuff, but
maybe they could have put a bit of a beetroot there, it would have showed the blood.
yeah.
or maybe the blood would spoil the mood of a humorous mood. I don't know.
Probably,
But
yeah.
no, but you're right. Yes. Actually, that scene is a bit traumatizing, I think. I mean, him being shot while in that performance, I personally found a bit traumatizing, really.
Oh, okay.
That aspect, because I mean, everything is hilarious until he gets shot, that sort of stuff. And also the stereotype. Look at how you've got those Hispanic gangs. Those are the only roles they can play. And actually, he shows the stereotype for all races, right? For black, for white, for Hispanics. And a role like roles, those kind of roles, that's like being cast in stone, eh?
Yeah.
You can't get out of there, but I think Townsend has changed that, because a lot of people who are now enjoying better roles is because of him. You see, what he has done, and others who've gone before him. Now, but the part that I would say maybe I personally didn't like too much, I kind of feel that these negative roles were a bit overemphasized. Yes, I understand that he needed to show, because this is showbiz, right? So you have to show, instead of saying it, show it. But like I see that the scene, the vignette about the slave trying to run away from slavery, stuff. I felt it was a bit exaggerated.
Yeah, but again, that's the point of the satire, is to over exaggerate.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. Yeah, it is to do that. Yeah, you're right. So you see, maybe I can just share with you that I'm a great believer that we have to change our situation. And so it's not enough to talk about it or to express it or to vent it or to act about it, but we actually have to change it.
Yeah.
And I make an example here about the Nigerians. You and me always talk about that. So Nigerians, a friend of mine, actually, this I got to know about this. He goes to a film festival in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And then he meets a Nigerian lady there. And so they introduce each other. And then she asks him, what do you do? He says, I'm a producer. And she says, what have you produced? And said, no, I'm still working on this movie. And then she says, how long are you working on the movie? And she told him, I don't know whether it's more than a year or something. She said, why are you taking so long to make a movie, to produce a movie? And she said, and he says, oh, it's because I'm still trying to raise R1 million. And she says, you South Africans, you always want to get money first. You must come to Nigeria. We will teach you how to make movie in a few days, in less than a week. We use our cell phones, we make movies. And today, Nollywood, which is the Nigerian film industry, is bigger than Hollywood. How about that?
Yeah.
And here, the interesting thing, in Nigeria, population is about 180 million, right? The population in America is about, 330 million? So almost half, really, the population. Nigeria's population is almost half of the US population, and yet it is bigger than Hollywood industry. That tells you something. So you see, Nigerians have got this amazing enterprising culture where they say, we must do it ourselves. We don't need to depend on others doing it for us. And so I think I would have liked that kind of message to be part of the Hollywood shuffle, because that is a very harsh experience that Townsend went through. So that vignette where it talks about don't let others steal your dreams, that would have been the perfect opportunity there to insert the message that says that we should also make our own movies. So we can make the decisions in terms of roles. You see that? And in real life, that's exactly what Townsend did. He did that exactly that in real life.
Yes.
But didn't share it with the audience.
Absolutely, yeah. So I could, move on to the trivia section. So I'll go over this section brief. So, because you did touch on some few points earlier about it. So with Robert Townsend, he put apparently 40,000 of the film's 100,000 budget on 10 personal credit cards. He got free film stock by splicing together leftovers from the production of Odd Jobs and Rat Boy. And these 17 days of shooting were spread over 2 years between Townsend's tours as a stand-up comedian, which is interesting.
Powerful stuff.
And you mentioned earlier that the film was shot without any film permits. So apparently, the crew, they got UCLA t-shirts so they could pass themselves off as students learning how to film in the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and that was ingenious.
And absolutely. And the last point is that he fantasizes him playing a flying black superhero, kind of like Superman. And apparently 6 years later, he would star in the Meteor Man about a flying black superhero.
And I remember I bought that movie for you. So Meteor Man, it really blew my mind because the only movie at the time was Superman. Superman, the white guy. So when I saw Meteor Man, I said I must buy this one for my babies, so they can see that a black man can also, or a black woman can also fly. You see that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I haven't watched that movie in a while, but it's something that I would like to revisit at some point.
Okay. Okay. I think I should also do the same. I must
Yeah.
revisit Meteor Man.
Yeah, yeah. But I would say though today, like there are plenty of superhero movies with people of color. So,
Okay. 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 So things have changed, right?
oh yeah, absolutely.
And we don't want to lose those changes, right? We can only build on them, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
And
and then also I think I like the fact that um, he Townsend, like I did mention that before, of course. I mean, he started acting before he graduated from high school, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, that's quite impressive. He
Mm-hmm.
was right. He was juggling school, juggling acting because that was his love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, like the last question that I'll ask, should this movie be rediscovered? So, should this movie be recommended? So,
I think so. I think this
mm-hmm.
movie should be rediscovered.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it should be recommended. So I think what you're doing right now is extremely important. It will go a long way to motivate that rediscovery so that people can actually go back and have a look at Hollywood Shuffle. Like
Mm-hmm.
people look at given a bad hand that you are dealt, can you
Mm-hmm.
work with this bad hand in order to launch your career,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as black people still have lots of challenges, but
Mm-hmm.
what's going to change the situation is not complaining or blaming others, but it's going to be a sense of perseverance, a sense of transcendence to transcend the adverse conditions, to go together, and also to forge unity. You
Mm-hmm.
see, we as Black people don't have a strong sense of unity, so we need to work on unity. And I think we can learn unity from the ends
Mm-hmm.
on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I landed here from Canada, here in South Africa. I was in North Johannesburg. There's a small suburb called Fourways,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was staying there, and I was just walking. I used to walk a lot, and I see this long line of ants. They are carrying heavy stuff, usually mostly leaves, and they're taking them to their hole the underground.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I come to the hole, near the hole there, and I see that there is one particular ant that's trying to push its stuff down, but it's struggling. And I see another ant basically leaving its stuff in the queue and rushing to the hole, going underneath and grabbing the part and pulling it
Mm-hmm.
while this particular ant was pushing. And eventually it went inside.
Mm.
And then when it was now a turn for this particular ant, that one also came to help it.
Yeah.
So you see, the ants have an incredible sense of solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
And as Black people, we need to have that. We are still very much a divided people, people divided along language. Some
Mm-hmm.
speak English, some speak French, some speak Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
Portuguese. And I love languages, Espanol, me gusta mucho español. I love Spanish a lot. But we shouldn't allow these things to divide us. We
Mm-hmm.
must really come together and work to move things forward. But you know what's going to change these things? It's going to be changed by the home.
Mm-hmm.
The most powerful school in terms of behavior is not the school that we graduate from, but is the home.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, is the home. Is a very, very powerful. Basotho have an expression that says, meaning the lasting knowledge is the knowledge of of the breast, breastfeeding. Like, when you are being breastfed, that influence from there is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning that we need to teach our children when they're still very little about uniting with other Black people to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Until we solve that puzzle, it's going to be very hard for us to move forward. I mean, for example, in Canada, the Black people are the first one to arrive there in the 1600s. Da Costa from Quebec, he's one of the, I think, one of the founders of Quebec City, for example. It's a Black. Anyways, Chinese arrived in Canada around the 1800s to fix the railway line, But, Chinese do better than African Canadians. Why? It's not because Chinese are more intelligent than African Canadians, but Chinese are more united. See, that is what changes everything. And as a result of that unity, China has become a superpower, right? A superpower. Even America is scared now of that. So I'm just making these few points to say that unity is very important for us to go forward as a people.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that's well said. Yeah, like I too do recommend like this movie because it's certainly like Robert Townsend, like he did fantastic job like with everything with the production, the directing, the writing, like and the humor, and also love that it brings awareness like to the issues that Black actors face, and loved how like the relevance of it like it still resonates today. And also too, like the parodies like are fun to enjoy. So please like check out this movie.
Very good. Check out the movie Hollywood Shuffle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The great Robert Townsend.
Absolutely, yeah. So that pretty much like wraps up this episode of the podcast. So where can people find you, and do you have any upcoming projects? That sort of deal.
Yes. So I do a lot of writing. My upcoming project is going to be, I'm writing an article called African Philosophy of Science. So that's my next project I'm working on, based on a lecture that I delivered at University of Johannesburg. So people can find me and my writings on my blog at www.zulumathabo.com. So I don't know, maybe you will put
yeah, it'll be in the description.
Okay. No, cool. Yeah.
And are you on social media where people can
follow
you?
Yes, I am on social media. Although the truth be told, I'm not that active on social media, but at least my Facebook page does receive, every time I post stuff on the blog, it goes to the Facebook. So I think that will be Zulumathabo Zulu on Facebook, and then also Zulumathabo Zulu on Twitter as well. Sure.
Absolutely. So you can follow myself on Twitter and Instagram at Nomfanelo. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RDMoviesPod. You could use the hashtag RDMoviesPod. You could answer the featured question on Spotify. You could also like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform. And you could submit questions, comments, and suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com, or you could also leave a short voice message on anchor.fm/rdmoviespod. So I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. I want to say thank you for joining in as a guest. It was very appreciative.
Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. The sentiment is mutual.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you have one final note you want to share?
I just want to say, great lady, you have done a great job. And it's nice to be a father and see a beautiful young lady who blends beauty and brains, doing what is her passion to do. And whenever you do something that you love, you will do it better than anybody else. So all the best.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So until next time.